Okay, we're going to tie a PT stone, soft-hackled nymph, a pattern taken from the book Tying and Fishing Soft-Hackled Nymphs, written by Alan McGee. I picked this pattern because it uses two of my favorite materials. One material is the partridge or ruffed grouse feather used for the tail and the hackle. I like this material because each fall, if I manage to bag a few partridge, I can renew my supply of tying material. And the second material that I really like is the squirrel fur dubbing for the body. Hare's mask is a spiky material, but squirrel fur is as spiky, and there's a lot more of that spiky material on a fox squirrel skin than there is on a hare's mask. Now, I've put about 10 wraps of lead on here going up towards the eye of the hook and probably 5 or so going back down. And you can see I've got a bend in this hook that I put in there. This is a standard 9672. I put that bend in the hook just using a pair of pliers, and I put it about a gap length back from the eye, and I just used another same size hook to judge where that bend should be. And having put that bend in there and put all this weight on here, I've got a 5/32 bead as well, and that's a tungsten bead. You can bet this PT stone is going to sink fairly rapidly to the bottom. And just for a little reinforcement, I'm going to put some copper wire in here as the recipe calls for. I'll pull that in a little bit and get this copper wire secured right to the bottom side of the hook. And rotate this back over, and we can get our partridge feather and get some tail material. Now this is a damaged tip partridge feather, so I don't mind tearing the fibers off it, and these feathers have the best aftershaft feathers, as you saw right there. They're great to save for patterns for burrowing nymphs and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to grab a few fibers off here. I'll kind of roll them together. I'll size them against the gap of the hook, the same spacing I used to put the bend in the hook. Bring that material up, use the turn and look technique so that I'm looking right down at my tie-in point. Secure that on with a couple wraps. It looks good. So I'll just wrap forward to bind all this material down. And I get that bound down and wrap a few wraps here to smooth everything up, but we don't have to worry too much about a smooth underbody on this. It's a pretty fuzzy fly. I got a dubbing hook tool here. Just going to hook this in and make a dubbing loop. 3.5, 4 inches long is plenty. Make a few wraps to close the top of this loop, and then pass my bobbin around the dubbing tool a couple times. That really assures you that you're going to close the top of that loop. Bring my thread up to the front and put it out over this bobbin cradle. And then here comes some of the fun part. That's working with this squirrel dubbing. This is really great stuff, a lot of spike to it, and it's really easy to work with. You can just buy a fox squirrel skin and clip it off and mix this up in a little blender or something, or pick it up at your local fly shop. And what's great about it is watch how it mats together. I'll just start pulling this out a little bit, and it stays and sticks. I don't have to do anything special to it. It's stiff enough so that when you pull it apart and stick it back together like this, it stays, and you get this little felt of material. And bring it around to the front here so you can see. And I didn't do anything special to make that. like that, you just move it around a little bit and it holds. So I separate this loop here and start this stuff up inside. Get it in the loop, and it can be positioned and pulled on. That loop open a little bit, and that is plenty. It's a lot of material right there. It goes the whole length of this thread. I'll see if I can get it up here where you can see it. Get a couple twists in it before I raise it up. I don't want too much to fall out here. There you go. Take a look. Now I'll twist it up a little bit more. And like I said, there's a lot of material here. Let me see if I can get some of this out of here. What pulls out now is just excess. There's plenty tightly secured inside that loop. So start wrapping, and I'll wrap towards the back so that the body will begin right where the tail starts. And then just start wrapping forward, and I'll stroke all these fibers to the rear so that I don't trap a lot of them down against the hook shank. Keep pulling those fibers back and stroking, taking any excess loose material out. And once you get to the end, just take your thread out of the cradle here. Move that thread out of the way and secure this. Couple wraps around. Trim this loop off. And we can get ready to wrap the rib on this thing. Clean some of this mess up first. Some of the looser pieces out of here. Now, to wrap that rib, what I'm going to do is make 4 or 5 wraps here. And these wraps will unwind as I bring this rib forward. And then my thread will just be hanging there waiting for me. And wiggle this through those dubbing fibers. Try not to trap too many of those down. And to get through to the end, just trap this wire, pass behind it, a couple wraps in front of it again. You just rotate it up to the top here and helicopter it off. And that pretty much finishes this back half of the fly. Again, this bend in the hook, I put this in about 1 gap length away from the eye, and I just used another hook the size of this one to get that gap measurement. Now throw a couple whip finish knots in here so this won't come loose, and then normally I would cement it as well. I'll just keep tying here to keep everything moving. But you seat that down on, and make sure it's sitting there nesting down onto that material, and with it on the bend like this and just above the bend, it's going to cause this hook to flip over and ride upside down. So this fly will ride point up and is much less likely to snag up on bottom because of that. Now I use a dubbing brush here to get the last of any loose material out of here. You can see there's still plenty left in there. Pull some of these longer fibers here. If you pinch and pull hard enough, you can get them out of there. Okay. So get my thread started back on. And build up a a little ramp in front of this bead. And I've got another partridge feather here, and again got this great aftershaft feather that I'll pluck off here and save. And we'll prep this feather by pulling all these fibers off the side, all the lower fibers. Then it's just a matter of grabbing these lower fibers and stroking them back so that you get this this look and shape. And then it's a matter of trimming this tip. We just square it off. Trim on both sides of that so that I don't have much of a bunch of fiber or anything to get in the way. And I'll just tie this tip in right almost up against the eye with the dull side towards the rear of the hook. Get that trapped, wrap back down, come right up against the bead. And pull that cradle up, hang my thread out over here, and see if I can get a whole wrap out of here. I think I left enough material to get one wrap, and one wrap is all you want on this fly. Stroke those fibers back as I wrap. And then work with that bend as a rotation takes place, and get that bobbin cradle out of the way and wrap back to this hackle stem and tie it off. Just pass behind it. Two or three wraps like that are plenty to hold it, and now all we got to do is make sure we don't trap any of those fibers when we wrap on our dubbing, and we finish the fly. So get these fibers all stroked back. A few wraps to smooth everything up. Come right up against those fibers. And grab some more of that fox squirrel. Bring that up and just do regular offhand dubbing to get a little bit of this on. Doesn't take much now. Certainly no need to form a dubbing loop. I'm going to start dubbing right behind the eye and wrap back towards the bead, and then wrap back to the eye. So get these fibers out of the way. And back up against those fibers. I can let them go, and I'll rotate just to make it convenient and easy to get at this dubbing. Separate those fibers right up to the eye, and I'll just take that excess dubbing off. That's pretty much it. I'll cut that off. It's bound to get caught in the whip finish knot if I don't. And on a fly like this, especially one that rides upside down and is going to be banging its head, if you will, into the bottom and into the rocks, one whip finish knot is good, but two is even better. And then I will indeed be sure and secure this both these knots with some head cement. I just won't do it here on the video to save time. Trim that off. I'll get that dubbing tool, the brush here, and separate these fibers a little bit. One last whack at the body and a little bit at the head. And there you have it. One finished fly. That's a PT, or a partridge stone, tied using rotary fly tying techniques.